Good evening and welcome to the South St. Paul School Board meeting Monday, July 27th, 2020. It's our virtual meeting. Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Arend.
Here.
Inspector Felton.
Present.
Inspector Diaz.
Here.
Inspector Bjorklund.
Here.
Inspector Walker.
Here.
Inspector Lalaberty.
Here.
Chair McClellan. That's 7 present.
Thank you. First up is the approval for the South St. Paul School Board to approve the July 27th, 2020 school board meeting agenda and school board meeting minutes from June 22nd, 2020 and June 29th, 2020 meetings. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Lalaberty.
Yes.
Inspector Arend.
Yes.
Inspector Felton.
Yes.
Inspector Diaz.
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund.
Yes.
Inspector Walker.
Yes.
And Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And it is approved. We'll move to our reports and discussion. First up is a return to school update. Dr. Webb.
Thank you. Good evening. So we have a number of reports tonight, and none of the topics that we have are small, just 1-minute topics. We have topics tonight like how do we plan to open school in the fall? What's our partnership with South St. Paul Police? How are we going to study our Central Square agreement? So I just want to get you comfortable and situated and get something to drink for our meeting tonight. And I'm going to start off with our return to school update. So I'm going to let Lisa broadcast the PowerPoint, and we'll just walk through that together. So today's Monday the 27th. On Thursday the 30th, we have an important day for the state of Minnesota. All summer long, school districts across the state have been planning for 3 scenarios. Well, the Minnesota Department of Education has said, in order to plan well for the pandemic, you as school districts across the state, our 300 plus school districts, each have to plan for any one of 3 scenarios: to be fully open and in person, to be in a hybrid mode where we possibly could have half the students, or to be fully in distance learning like we did last spring, where students were learning at home. So for the past 6 weeks, we've been working. We have 14 design teams. We've really been hard at work planning each aspect of everything from staffing to curriculum to technology to make sure that we are set for the fall. So let's go to the next slide. Under our very first scenario, the in-person scenario, this assumes that all students are back in the school district. So we know in like a secondary building where we have 1,600 students, social distancing would be a huge challenge. So we would need, in order to accomplish scenario 1, a nod from the state that they are going to not put a great importance on social distancing. Let's go to the next scenario. In the hybrid scenario, we believe, like they have currently around the state for bars and restaurants, they might put a ratio of 50% and allowing 50% of our students in at any one time. This would mean in a transportation world, 1 student per seat. When we're coming into class, it would mean that half the students are in class at any one time. And there's really a day 1, day 2 type framework, like an A, B, every other day scenario that we're planning in hybrid. What parents should know is in every one of our scenarios, if you forget everything else that I'm sharing tonight, you should know that our students will be taught 5 days a week. Our teachers will be instructing 5 days a week. We won't know until Thursday what the governor says what kind of level of dial turning he'll use on his governor's dial. But if he turns it to 50% and that 50% of our students can come back, we'll be in the hybrid scenario. And most likely that looks like every other day. Let's go to the next scenario. In the third scenario, in distance learning, students will learn at home through our digital learning. I want to give a shout out to our tech department and our curriculum leaders. We are now one-to-one as a school district and have expended some of our federal and state specific dollars for the pandemic to make sure that every student coming into the fall, whether we're in person or hybrid or fully or distance learning, we will have every student set with a device. We also know that when we get a second shot at distance learning and not emergency distance learning like we had 8 days to prepare, our teachers have been working this summer to continue to hone their skills. They'll continue to improve. We've had just wonderful reports about our summer school program in distance learning already. So we're looking for not only a distance learning option, we want to provide an option for all families that don't feel safe in coming back. And I sent out a message just last week saying, if you don't feel safe, your family has an underlying condition, of course you can do distance learning with us in South St. Paul. We just don't know if the governor is going to say everyone has to pull on to distance learning, or everyone will be allowed to do hybrid, or everybody back in school. So again, just to recap, in a distance learning scenario, students will be taught 5 days a week, like in all the scenarios. They would just be instructed again at home. Thursday is this week's announcement from our governor. He seems to like 2 o'clock Thursday afternoons has been his pattern. So if you want to follow, we'll be on the edge of our seat until Thursday, and we'll be hearing the announcement at the same time you will. We don't really have a crystal ball right now regarding that announcement, but they just came out with CDC guidance over the weekend. And the Center for the Disease Control for the United States said we need to pay particular attention to hotspots. And hotspots are classified as anywhere over 5%. And right now, Dakota County itself has a testing positivity rate of 7%. So we have to keep an eye on that. The governor, I know, is. So we'll wait for Thursday's announcement to see our direction. Next. So once we get the governor's direction on Thursday, we'll be coming back with our steering committee and our 14 design teams, finalizing our communication plans for parents in the community. And then over the course of the next week, we'll be getting that up and out and sharing with the community. One option, and I want to be clear again, if you don't feel safe as a family and don't feel safe sending your student back and you need to opt into distance learning, that will always be an option this coming school year. That's true at our elementaries, our middle, and our high school. I also want to give a shout out to our school leaders. Each of them are planning scenarios to try to minimize transitions within the school. And I'll share our middle school, for instance, is trying to make sure that the core math, English, science, social are all taught in a room, and teachers travel rather than students traveling. So it's that kind of thinking in a pandemic where we want to lessen spread, that we want to continue to do behind the scenes to make sure that we're supporting all students. Family survey. Our survey will be coming out shortly after our governor's guidance. And we want to allow for families to choose to return in person, depending on the governor's direction, or distance learning full-time. Next. I'm going to quiet down because you as board members have gotten tapped when you went shopping at the grocery store, when you were at an event with your child or community member. So I'd like to just quiet down for the most common questions that you might be getting as board members.
So I have been getting questions about special ed students and the supports for those kids, you know, at home. And if a lot of those folks are telling me that they don't feel like they want to send their child to school because of their conditions. And so what supports do we have for the families while at home? And then is anything looking different than it did in the spring for those students?
So yeah, I first will say that in every one of our academic areas, Chad Schmitz is doing a wonderful job leading our learning teams this summer and trying to make sure that we are prioritizing our standards. Oftentimes in a grade level, you'll get 30 math standards. So right now, due to the pandemic, the teams are looking under the hood and they're saying, if we can't teach 30 in a pandemic, especially in distance learning, what might be our top 20 and top 15 or 10? So we can make sure that we're prioritizing our work. So that's one thing I would share. Two is that we want to continue to personalize for every learner in South St. Paul, especially our students with special needs. So our special ed director, Kelly Tetrick, has been here nearly every day all summer and continues to receive phone calls, requests from families. So I know she's already received a number of requests, and I would redirect those directly to our special ed department. We want to make sure that we're matched well with you and supporting you as a family. Others?
Patty, you have something to say?
Well, this isn't from this particular district, but I have been talking to a few colleagues and parents, and what they're most concerned about is the quality of instruction. That the distance learning for many kids is fine, but for the high achieving kids, you know, are we zeroing in any more clearly on the expectations? We're still in the midst of a pandemic, and the mental health of our students is important as their academic progress. But how are we, you know, how are we looking at that these days?
So I got a couple of questions in there.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about, you know, reaching and supporting high achievers, so one of the coolest parts about what happened last year is that Chuck Ochaki and Chad Schmidt had worked with staff. So when we started last school year, so before the pandemic started, I believe that they had 18 classes that were already operating in a hybrid mode. And these were students that were college-bound level students. So a lot of our top students in our full IB diploma program, they'd get grounded at the start of the year, and then they'd go on to an every other day schedule, a real college-like schedule. So these teachers have the most experience of anyone in the district in that mode. So I truly believe they are the most prepared as we're again coming into this fall. Chuck or Chad, feel free to add anything there if I missed.
Yeah, I'll just add in really quick. Sorry, guys, Chuck. Really what I'm going to tell you is we have rewritten the distance learning plan at the secondary, both for middle school and high school. So we looked at what we did last spring, realized it wasn't good enough, and started meeting with teachers. So I've been meeting with 20 teachers all throughout the summer to rewrite our plan. And some of the stuff that you guys are talking about is making sure that we have built-in supports for our students. And so every day that we are in distance learning, students will have the opportunities to check in with their teachers. So to get that face-to-face, which was something that we missed in the spring. So I just want you to know that we reviewed the data. There was a survey that went out to talk about distance learning and what worked and what didn't work. And we in the secondary, and I think the elementary, same thing, have really looked at what we heard from our families and students and have designed a different system. So what we did in the spring will not be what happens in the fall.
I like to think of it as kind of an iPhone model where last spring was iPhone 1. And as we come into the fall, we're really ramping up to iPhone 2. So we're new as a district, like every district around the state was in distance learning. And I believe we really will be at a new level coming into the fall.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Dave,
Other questions?
unless the governor says mandates it or an executive order that they want kids within seats in the school, we still have the final say, right? I mean, we can still say what we want what we want it to look like.
So we like to think so because there's this thing called local control in the state of Minnesota. However, we didn't have that experience with graduation because he came out with an order. So if this is a governor's order and we violate the order and somebody gets sick and dies, we are liable. So there's a difference between here's guidance and here's an order. We got graduation, an order last year about how we had to run graduation. So if it was just guidance, we probably would have had a commencement ceremony, but it was an order that we had to follow, and we chose to follow the order so we didn't have the liability.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dave or Chuck or Chad?
I have one follow up to Jeff's. So even if we did or didn't follow the governor's order, do our insurance carriers have a say also? If they are uncomfortable with the decision we make, if it's outside of the general direction everybody else is going?
I would think so. If you're going out on a limb and you put the liability onto the school district, we would have to report that to our insurance agents.
In advance?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we have known liability, we give a heads up there.
You know, the comments I've been getting from the neighborhood and such revolve around safety and just everyone's desire to make sure that if we are putting staff and students back into the schools, that they're going to be safe. And I said, no, I think the specifics, the details of what we'll be doing with cleaning and distancing and such are probably not even known yet. But I assured them that safety was a paramount concern of ours. And I just thought if you could perhaps say a few words and emphasize that, it would do good for the listeners to know that that's a top priority in getting anyone back into the building.
Yeah, so I'll just say if you want to lose an hour of your life at a leadership team meeting, just talk about masks and mask guidelines, because that's a quick way to lose an hour of your life. But the governor came out strong on masks. When we walked into our offices today, there's signage all over on every door here coming into our district office, for example. We all have to wear masks. It's the guidance from the governor. Our students will need to be wearing masks all the way from kindergarten through grade 12. You'll see things like hallway dividing, kind of directional, one-way stairwells. You'll see disinfecting and cleaning on everything from school buses to hallways. You'll see lunch modifications, transportation modifications, all in the name of safety. So I don't know if that helps, Chris, but just a little taste there.
Yeah, I think that's a good indication of the priority we're giving it as we get ready for the fall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a question too, Jeff. I had a couple people wanting to inquire about kids' choice, if there will be any before or after school care available for families that would send their children to school if the schools are open and what any option would be for them with Kids' Choice.
So that is the biggest wild card, that we don't know what the funding will be from the state. And I'll say last spring, they did not fund Kids' Choice. So Kids' Choice is a parent-funded before and after school option. So when the state didn't fund it, our community ed budget went negative by a couple $100,000. So we ran and tried to maintain and support our staff in the program, but it was one of those areas that was not funded by the state. So we're hoping that changes. We're hoping that Kids' Choice before and after and even during the day care is funded by the state, and we're going to wait and see the guidance on Thursday. Thanks for the question, Wendy.
I'm curious as to how much teachers were included in all of this planning that you have been doing these last few months.
Thanks. So at each of our sites, we've been engaging with teachers and trying to elevate teacher voice. So I think, when you look kind of site by site and program by program, we want to continue to kind of work with our staff, work with our teachers in getting feedback. And we also, as we continue to get finalized guidance from the state, my hope is that we can also get more and more feedback from families as we start rolling out our direction to hear from families. We did a survey about a month ago just to get early feedback on things like distance learning, their comfortability with distance learning and with return to school. And so we just now sent out a staff survey checking on, do you have underlying conditions? Are you able to report to work for the fall? So we're doing an HR component, and every program leader is engaging with staff from their site. So I know like Lincoln Center had a building instructional leadership team meeting last week. Kaposia had sessions today and tomorrow with staff. High school's been meeting almost weekly, I think, or bi-weekly to engage with, as Chuck mentioned, his team of about 20 teachers on their plans. So we're trying to continue to elevate voice across the district.
Interesting, because that certainly isn't what I'm hearing through phone calls and emails and texts from staff members. They feel very left out in the dark. There hasn't been enough information forthcoming. They don't feel that their voices are heard. I think teachers are probably some of the most creative problem solvers that you're going to come across. And if we're not tapping into that, then we are losing out. And I realize that there are many, many questions that don't have answers yet. I get that.
It's true. Yep.
But I'm just getting this general sense from people that I've been talking with that they just feel left in the dark. Just throwing that out there.
Yep, I appreciate it. I know that Kaposia today, like I said, had meetings. They'll have meetings again tomorrow.
That's good.
Like I said, I know Mike had his instructional leadership team meeting last Thursday. Chuck, again, has been having a group of about 20 middle school, high school staff meeting with EN principal. So I realize that not every person is in on those meetings. So, and I'll just say that personally, this is like the most stress that I've seen on parents in our district, leaders around the state, parents across the state. We're in a pandemic. People aren't doing well just generally, and nobody gets to choose what the governor is going to decide on Thursday. So it's hard, and we know that we're on an every other day model and hybrid. Very few people believe that the governor's going to plan to send everybody back to school when we have elementary schools that are 700 kids. Be pretty socially distanced. So, and then distance learning, we would have to make do again and do our best if we're back learning from home. So.
Right. Just one other quick question. I heard recently that there's an hourly stipend that people are being paid to be on this COVID committee. And number one, is that true? And number two, if it is true, where are those funds coming from?
Thanks. So required by law is this pandemic planning committee. So most of the people that we have on the committee are like our director of building and grounds, like Mark Fenton or Kathy Miller, who's in charge of staffing. But when we need like a school nurse, Johnny Kruger has been a great member. We need to, she's not contracted during the summer, so we need to provide a stipend for that. And so we did receive some federal and state funds for pandemic management, and we can tap dollars there when needed. And we have to make sure that we provide guidelines for staff that are returning to work here in the summer. So that was an immediate task. Now they're shifting into all the guidelines for opening with staff in the fall.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? Okay, thanks, Dave.
Yeah,
I didn't. It's got to be hard.
Yeah, it's 5:30, so I didn't think that was going to be a minute-long topic.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I warned you ahead of time. We have a few more of those tonight on the board.
Okay. All right, next we'll go to the public listening session report. Dr. Webb.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks again. So it could be all superintendent all night long here. So just 3 submissions in our inbox. We had one parent. I had a great conversation with the parent who was wondering about the opening school options. So shout out, she said she'll be watching the board meeting tonight. So shout out to her. Everyone wants to know how we're planning to open. So again, we have the 3 options, waiting for the governor. We expect it to be 2 o'clock on Thursday, and we'll hear the announcement as you do. And then we'll take a week to just work on all the district communication and kind of roll forward with district communication about that point. I want to reassure parents again, if you have a child with an underlying condition, you will be able to opt in for distance learning as an option, even if we offer a hybrid option where students coming back or a all students coming back option. You can always opt in to distance learning if you don't feel safe. So that was the first call. The second call that we got was from a clerical representative and spoke up about concern with the classification and assignments that we had for 3 of our clerical roles. And so I spoke with our HR director so we can review those 3 positions and make sure that we have everybody classified in the right role and really getting the right pay as we're moving into a new school year. So we had a nice conversation, thanked that person. The third conversation was with a teacher in our district. This teacher has been doing some incredible study work over the summer, and more so following George Floyd's death, but just was reaching out to say, do we have and can we get a district equity committee rolling for the fall? So Connie Garling Squire is our lead for not only early learning, but for equity as well. And she is planning to launch a new district equity leadership team and engage with teachers, and a number of teachers have reached out to her directly. So we're looking to launch that this fall. Those 3 came in the inbox. Just wanted to give you an update.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave about that? Okay, next is Central Square Community Center update. Dr. Webb, will you introduce our guests?
I sure will. So we have the honor tonight to be joined by Joel Hanson, our city manager. Joel's been doing a great job in just the first couple of years in the saddle at the city. He's been a great partner with us as a school district. And he brings with him not only Chris Esser, but one of our next topics after this is our school resource officer topic. I'll introduce members of our police department after that. But Esser has been a longtime lead for our Parks and Rec department. Again, a good partner with us, with the school district, but leader and go-to for our Central Square partnership. So I think, Chris, you mentioned our Central Square partnership started about the year 2000. And Chris is going to lead us in a little bit of background. He's here for any color commentary he wants to add. And I want to welcome both of them. So take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Webb, Chairman McClellan, the rest of the school board members. Thanks for having us on today. So right now, Central Square, I never want to assume that everybody knows how our management agreement works. It's been long-standing since 2002. So I know you have a lot of items on the agenda tonight, but I just want to give a quick overview in case any inspectors or anyone listening from the public has any questions about how this whole operation works. So bear with me, I'll be brief, but then I want to get into some topics that I think are worthy of some discussion, or at least starting the discussion. So that's the main reason we're here to talk about this partnership tonight. So Central Square was remodeled in the year 2000 as part of a school district referendum. The space did exist as a former elementary school and as a pool only for quite a while. When that school referendum remodeled, Central Square reopened as a true community center in 2002. At that time, a management agreement was formed between Special School District 6 and the City of South St. Paul for a joint operation of the facility, being a school-owned building, but operated by the City of South St. Paul's Parks and Recreation Department. I was not here in 2002. I started in 2005, but it was done basically under the leadership at the time of Rich Dipple and Tim Ditburner from representing both city and school district. So it's been a great partnership ever since then. So Central Square thrives on membership and programs that we sponsor for the community. Later added was the Senior Center. So just to give you an overview right now, where we sit, membership right now is at 692 memberships. That was at the beginning of this year. Right now, I think it's much less as people are starting to come back into the building as of 3 weeks ago. So this is the week 3 that we've been back operating for our members. At an all-time high, Central Square's membership when I started here was in the 400 range. And at that time, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not Central Square in 2005 was a failed experiment or not. So we were able to turn it around, increase membership. We reached our peak at 2003 with 1,002 members. If you conclude or do the math on the memberships between 2013 and now, we've experienced about a 31% decrease, which is concerning. And we continue to see some decline right now. What has led to that? A lot of market pressure has led to that, and I'll get into that a little bit later. What else do we offer here? Classes and programs. We have in-person fitness classes that are led by live instructors. Also, we run because of the resource of the swimming pool being here, we're able to run swim lessons. We're able to run a gymnastics program, which we've done both of those activities in partnership with the school district in the past. And we contribute to the facilities of both of those amenities of the building as well. Those classes typically break even, so they are self-supporting for the most part, and membership and enrollment in those programs has remained fairly steady. The Senior Center, when I started here in 2005, it took about 3 months later that the part-time senior coordinator at the time, Sue Rich, went into retirement. At that time, we were approached by community education with the school district, asking, since we are already occupying the space here and managing the building, if we'd be interested in managing the Senior Center as well. So we drafted an agreement, agreed to do that. So what happens now is through that agreement from 2005, the school district's community education budget pays 33% of one of our recreation supervisor's salary. So right now, it's bounced around to a couple different recreation supervisors throughout time. Right now, Shannon Young is the recreation supervisor that facilitates that program. But in reality, all of us here in the office, all 5 staff members that are here help in some part with the Senior Center. So we do run the Senior Center on behalf of the school district. So in reality, through budget, and through operation, it is your program. We contractually run it through Central Square as part of, it's not part of the management agreement, it has its own separate agreement, but it operates very similarly. Capital projects, both parents, when I talk about parents, I mean the city council and you as the Board of Education. Those are the two parents of Central Square as it exists as the child of those two parents through the management agreement. Capital Projects Fund, in 2009, both parents agreed that any revenue that was made here at Central Square would stay at Central Square for building maintenance and improvements through a capital fund. So it was decided by both parents at that time that money cannot be used for operation. It can only be used for improvements. So since 2009, there's been, by my math, $338,866 have been brought back into this building to support the capital operation. We know that the school district, even though it's your building, have tasks with teachers, books, education things that, there's some things at the building that might be low on the priority list based on those other priorities. So we as Central Squares try to help out with that. So I'll give you some examples. Both locker rooms have been remodeled over the years. We've helped out with some pool refurbishments. We've helped pay for some gymnastics equipment. The playground structure that's on the corner of 6th Avenue and Marie was paid for out of that fund. We saw that as an extension of this building. Signage, atrium windows, things like that. So we've helped to support the building of Central Square, and thanks to the two parents deciding to do that with the capital fund. So that's been a real benefit in knowing that not any one of the two parents could do that alone. School district activities, what do you use the building for? This is your building after all. Both swim teams operate out of this building. For the girls swim team are in the fall, boys are in the winter season, and then gymnastics, that team also operates out of this facility in the wintertime. So we are able to offer the pool to our members, offer gymnastics for our youth program when those activities aren't happening. Also, community education uses the building frequently for some of their classes, things like babysitting training, maybe some driver's ed, things like that, specialty classes. And also there has been times when the school district has come over here to get off site at the secondary building to do teacher workshops and things like that we've worked together on. Building custodial support. The custodial services that happen here at Central Square are a school district function. So the building, when it's clean in the evening, those are school district employees. We do also employ as Central Square building attendants that work here earlier in the morning, later in the evening when we're not here. Those employees do some light cleaning, but really basically it is school district buildings and grounds custodial staff that cares and maintains this building. So along with the Mark and his staff. The one thing the Central Square does for that was requested that the Central Square board agreed to in 2010 was Central Square pays $14,000 for summer pool maintenance. At the time when we were doing very well, there was a need, saw that Central Square members use the pool more so than school district functions in the summertime. So we were requested to help pay for that. And so we've been doing that ever since. Again, that's about a $14,000 expenditure. So why are we here to talk about, first of all, any questions about that before I continue? Any inspectors, any members? Okay, I'll keep going. Doesn't look like there are any. Feel free to interrupt me. So current and future considerations. So this is what I'm here to bring up the conversation, kind of the why now. And I'm guessing some of you or most of you maybe saw an article in the Pioneer Press. The City Council discussed this about a month ago, and we brought it to them based on a lot of the factors I'm going to talk about now of the why now and why are we talking about the management agreement and what does the current and future state of Central Square look like. So before COVID-19 happened, Central Square was in decline with memberships. It continues to be in decline. Back in 2002, it was a very solid operation and a smart thing to do at the time. I truly believe that because there was little market competition at the time. There was basically the Grove and Grove Heights, the West St. Paul YMCA, and Curves here in town, which is female-only clientele, and then also and Central Square opened. So very little market pressure served a need in the community where there was likely gaps for fitness and community gathering space. I'm sure that was the theory behind this place turning into a community center. But now there's been a lot of market pressure moved into the area. Anytime Fitness, Snap Fitness, 24-hour fitness, you name it, Planet Fitness, They're all in West St. Paul, Amber Grove Heights. There are some here in South St. Paul that have created that market pressure. We didn't really feel it at first, even when LA Fitness opened up in West St. Paul. A few of our members left, but what's really stifled us lately has been Planet Fitness, where they offer very low rate, about half of what our membership rate is for memberships. And frankly, we don't see a very diverse cross section of our population here in South St. Paul coming through the door. We have a much older clientele. We don't see, as I like to say, unless there's somebody that's part of a family membership. That's the only time we really see maybe teenagers in here, younger people. We don't really see the 20-something newly married couple that just bought a house in town. That's not really our clientele. Our clientele's getting older. Our membership's in decline. We don't see a lot of people coming through the door. And that might be a function of us also housing the senior center here. Anecdotally, yes or no, that could be argued, but that's one of our observations. So in a time of decline and what's going on with, there will certainly be economic impacts this year to Central Square's operation. We haven't charged our members for 4 months worth of membership. Now that we're reopening, we're going to do that in the middle of August. We're going to reactivate our ACH members. That stands for Automated Clearinghouse. So those people that have elected to have automatic withdrawal for their membership versus paying up front. The folks that have paid up front, we are going to extend their membership by 4 months, meaning there'll be impacts into 2021 based on the budget of us extending that. That's revenue that's going to be extended, not new revenue collected. So we know that both parents are dealing with very serious and thoughtful conversations now around budgets and what's going to happen. So the why now is, do we have an opportunity with everything going on now to save both parents some funding, maybe reallocate some of the operations here, and how does that impact our service to the community? So knowing both the school district, the city is going through some of those tough budget discussions. That's why we're bringing this up, knowing that Central Square is going to be definitely operate, concluding this year, in a deficit. I would extend that to say likely 2021 will also be a deficit, and how much is each parent willing to start subsidizing the operation here if extra taxpayer money is needed. So because of that market pressure, we've held the line on memberships for the last 5 years. Typically, we were raising memberships every 2 years. The Central Square board, in their wisdom, is the right decision, has held the line on that, knowing that there's other choices, other places people can go. So, so basically, we're not keeping up with inflation. We're not raising membership fees based on where we are in the market. There's more market competition. So where does that leave us? Do we keep continuing on? Do we have that conversation now about maybe changing the operation here, the service to the public, knowing that probably 2020, 2021 are going to find a financial shortfall of revenue versus expenditures. So that's the why now, is why we're talking about it. If there was going to be an operational change right now, there's things we'd have to figure out per the management agreement, with things that Central Square has purchased, things that Central Square owns as the child of two parents. I think that can be easily figured out between the two of us if we go down that road. Also, right now, speaking of that capital CIP fund, is we have a little bit of a cushion to do something if either parent, meaning the school district or the city, needed to make a change and support that change financially. There is still a little bit of a financial cushion there. Of that capital fund has just under $70,000 in it now, that according to the management agreement will likely be split 50-50 between the two. If another option is both parents could decide to reallocate that money towards operation, which would require a change in the management agreement, if we did that, that money will not likely replenish itself. That once it's gone, it will probably be drawn down and become zero. And our projections are Central Square will stay what it is, and probably likely have to have more taxpayer subsidy based on that. So also with the senior center, again, I mentioned earlier, that's the school district's program, it's your program, but we feel very important here, and very importantly here, and we want to communicate this to the public, to our membership that's part of the senior center, the folks that are here very frequently, that the senior center cannot go away, whether it's operated by the school district once again, or operated by the city of South St. Paul. We would certainly advocate for that to stay a function wherever it is, however it's functioning in the community, and would not recommend that to go anywhere. So But that takes budget dollars. Right now, most of it's funneled through the school district's community education budget. So it's really up to you as the Board of Education, the school district, to decide what happens with the future of that program. It's not our program to take over. It's not our program to assume. It's really your program that you contract us to do. So we'd like to hear more about that from your perspective. And believe me, with all this discussion, I don't expect instant answers tonight. This is really just an introduction of kind of where we're headed and what our concerns are. Also, with the Parks and Recreation Department, we have a transition opportunity with the vacation of the CLC and the operation opening up at 19th and Thompson. I'm not sure if you have a name yet. I know you're probably working on that too.
That's on our agenda later on here.
Okay, no spoilers here, but anyway, whatever that building's going to be called. So you have an opportunity. We know the CLC is moving there. So again, the why now is if we have this opportunity now for something to change Parks and Recreation as a department, we have someplace to go and relocate. With the formation of Doug Woog Arena, and we've done some reorganization over the last 2 years in particular, Doug Woog Arena right now needs some help. So we've already been in discussion about reallocating some of our staff to go there. It may take a function of all of our staff relocating there to help out that building as well. Similar to how we run Central Square, we have a city building that needs that support. Doug Woog Arena is in our department. It's under our auspices, under our direction. So we need to take a look at that opportunity now that there's a place for us to be in that building. Does it make sense for us to move to that building and help support that operation? So that's a consideration. What comes along with that? Again, maybe it gives us an opportunity as Parks and Recreation to operate different things in that space. I never want to assume if that was to happen, what would stay here at Central Square as open to the public and operated by whomever, or what would follow us down to Doug Woog Arena. Again, that's a larger discussion. Certainly we want to maintain service to the public. So whatever that looks like, we want to make sure that's seamless, whether that ends up being something like the senior center or some type of fitness component or something. What I would not advocate for is operating the fitness component as far as the equipment goes. That's probably our largest expense here at Central Square is the ownership, the lease, the maintenance of that fitness equipment. And again, with the market pressure, with the membership supporting that function, that's really what's happening right now and why we're eventually coming to a cliff, I think, with memberships and the limit that we have with that. So that's something that the private sector offers. So it's something where a gap would be filled, a community service could be filled by somebody else maybe running that, or whether it's school district or some private entity. Budget savings, again, I want to emphasize that's again the why now is why we're talking about it, is if both parents can benefit by a change budgetarily. There are things, and I probably don't have them all listed. I'm sure Mark could come up with his own list, but with us, on the city side, we have some specific computer hardware that's specific to Central Square that we pay maintenance fees on. We have administrative and finance resources that we pay extra money for helping us operate Central Square. School District 6 operates a 7-day-a-week building that's open when our regular hours are 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, 7 to 7 on the weekends. If it wasn't going to operate as a community center and the function it is now, there would certainly be utility costs, building costs that would be saved wear and tear, of course. So there's a lot of budgetary things that could benefit. Also, the vacant interior space. We don't have a good sense of what the school district have used for extra space here for whatever program, whatever department, whatever function, if the Parks and Recreation Department wasn't here anymore. So I just want to conclude by saying, before I want to listen to your questions and comments, but I don't want this to be lost at all, that the Parks and Recreation Department, me personally, I know the rest of my staff shares this, we're very proud of what happens here. We're very proud of the 18-year history we have operating Central Square as a community center for our community. We're proud of the partnership. This is by no means a divisive conversation that there's disagreement or there's anything going on behind the scenes with the management agreement. Anything really we've asked for in the past from the school district, chances are we've gotten or we've had their partnership to work towards a solution. It's always been an amicable relationship. So I'd never want to give that impression that somebody's disagreeing with something and we're trying to part ways. That's not it at all. It's really a financial thing. And the base fact is, is the Parks and Recreation Department going to move? If we do move, what does that look like? So that's my part of it. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to hear comments, and certainly I'll open it, like Dr. Webb said, Joel Hansen, our city administrator, is on the line as well. He may have some comments. So
yeah, we actually have two people. We have Joel Hansen is our city manager, and we'd like to open up to him. Nikki Lalaberty is our Central Square board representative too. She might have a comment or two, don't know. So just Joel, I don't know if you want to say anything, or Nikki, feel free to chime in here.
Well, Dr. Webb and members of the school board, thanks a lot for the chance to present tonight. I think Chris did a good job, obviously, of laying out the challenges that Central Square is facing. And this presentation was made to the city council. They feel this warrants further exploration, just given the times we're in and the challenges we were facing before COVID-19, which have now been exacerbated. So I just want to assure the board that, you know, we want to work with our partners to make the best decision we can for the community going forward. That's my main concern in tonight's discussion.
Nikki, would you like to share anything?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So the question that was really posed to the city council is the same one that we want to pose to you as board members, is just, would you like to see us continue to study the future of our partnership with Central Square? So you know that we've had a downturn in membership last year. Chris says we're on track for a downturn this year. He's forecasting downturn in membership next year. So we have some downward budget pressure within Central Square. Fortunately, we do have about a $70,000 fund balance there for, what did you call the CIP, Chris? The capital fund.
Correct.
So, but we want to get a sense from around the horn with the board and what, if you would support just a continued partnership study moving forward.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So is it an oversimplification to say then that the fitness memberships are what's kind of guiding this whole conversation? That's the main problem?
That's the money financial base, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but that seems to be the support for why we have a fitness center as a city.
that is correct. Our primary source of revenue that far outweighs anything is our memberships, which, why do people use a membership to come here? They come here to use the pool. They come here to use the fitness room. All of our fitness classes are a la carte. So I'm sorry if I brushed over that and didn't explain that. Sometimes when you join a membership at another facility, fitness classes are included. Ours are not. You pay separately for those. But if you're a member, you get a discounted rate. So really, we live and die by our memberships and how many members we have and how many people are regularly paying a monthly membership. And so our biggest expense is the fitness room. Our biggest reliance on revenue is the fitness room. So it's not an oversimplification to say our membership's declining for people that want to come here and work out. That's why we're facing this financial crisis.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Other
Bill.
comments from board members?
I wonder how much time do we have to study this and make a decision? In your mind, how much time do we have to take a good look at this and make the right decision and know that we do have some choices?
I would say, well, right now we're in the budget cycle. We run off a different fiscal calendar than you folks. We run the calendar year, January through December. Right now we are in the middle of our budget process, starting to review with the city council. So right now, if we're going to do something for 2021, now would be the time that we'd have to start planning for that budgetary period. Again, if a lot of this is the issue of whether or not Parks and Recreation is moving out of Central Square. If that does happen, our timeline for that is when does Doug Woog Arena need the help? And whether that's, again, a staff of 2 people, a staff of all of us, it really starts ramping up again in early October. So would anybody, either parent under the gun and say by October 1st, we have to have an answer? No, but I think we have to have a plan in place knowing that if something was going to happen, I would feel most comfortable of December 31st at the very latest, just because we're going into the next fiscal year, which would start January 1st.
Chris, what you're looking from us? Just a heads up, just to keep studying this. Is that what you're looking for us from?
Yeah, I mean, just I want to, there's a lot of rumor on the street right now. Obviously when an article ends up in the paper, when a reporter pays attention to an agenda, but we have, on our side of things, we have some serious need to support Doug Wugarina. So we want to include our, partners at the school district before just giving notice and saying, we're going to give you our 90-day notice and we're going to be out of here, per the management agreement. As Joel stated very well, as we want to work with you as partners. And if we are down the road of moving, which is something the city council has encouraged, is a need we have, we want to start this conversation to work with you on what's the best way to make that happen. And again, I guess what would the next step be is if Parks and Recreation is going to vacate the space here, how do we support the transition of an operation? What does the transition of an operation look like? And knowing that budgetarily, both parents have budgetary challenges right now, really severe budgetary challenges. So if we're going to start down this road, which we already really have, of relocating, how to make that the least impactful possible and transition and help both parents with a transition process without it impacting our service to the community. What does that service community look like? I think they're going to be impacted, but trying to minimize that and as best we can, working together.
Thank you. Is there anybody against working with the city on this?
Yeah, I'd just like to say a couple things to Chris. I wouldn't be surprised, Chris, that once this COVID thing calms down and things reopen, I mean, granted, people are not going to the gyms like they used to be and maybe not wanting to pay their dues right now because they don't want to risk, any transmission of anything. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen a huge uptick in registrations coming back to Central Square once this COVID thing relaxes and things reopen somewhat back to normal. And I also want to say a thank you to Shannon Young and your staff, because I am a member of the board of directors for the senior center. And I know our senior members are just so eager to get back together, as a group once things calm down and it's safe for us to meet again. So I certainly hope we will continue these discussions with the city to try and do as much as we can to keep Central Square alive and active and open to our community. Thank you.
After serving on the Central Square Advisory Board for 4 years now and watching the membership numbers just slowly going down as time has gone on, and just like Chris said, the membership is, they're becoming seasoned adults. I'm not going to use senior citizens. And I think that's a wishful hope, Wendy. But frankly, with all the other places to work out and go to, I don't see that happening. I really don't. I think we need to be really fiscally smart about this and not waste money and time on something that almost feels like it's already decided.
I believe Curves has closed, hasn't it?
Yes, correct.
So the writing might be on the wall. I wish it could be otherwise, but maybe it's time to transition into another purpose for that building, or expand the purpose of that building to reach beyond, offer something that we can offer that the large fitness places can't offer. And maybe it's not even fitness. So I agree. I think that the conversation should continue with the city. Is it a 50-50 conversation as far as decision goes?
I guess I can answer that, probably knowing the management agreement best. Both the management agreement has an out clause for both parents. So if, again, we want to do things amicably, but just know that if the school district wanted to end the relationship with the city, or the city wanted to end the relationship with the school district, that management agreement says a 90-day notice has to happen. So again, but we hope that we could do something amicably, that we wouldn't have to follow contract language, knowing that we're good partners, always have been. Mm-hmm. So, but that's, so 50-50, but where the 50-50 really would become interesting is Central Square owns things. So it's not owned by the school district. It's not owned by the St. Paul. It's owned by Central Square. So moving ahead, regardless of what purpose the city would have for something, the school district would have for something, we'd have to figure out. It'd be easy to do. I don't want to make it sound complicated. I think it'd be easy to do how we figure out what equipment goes where, what resources go where. I think it'd be easy to do, but that's just one small part of the process that would have to be figured out.
That's good to know. Thank you, Chris.
So any other questions for Chris or Joel? I think I'm going to go around and ask everyone if they want to move forward with working with the city. Linda?
Absolutely. I agree with Nikki. I think the sooner we do it, the less time that we waste.
Okay. Wendy?
Absolutely.
Okay. Patty?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes, based on all this information, I think that's the right way to go.
Okay, and Bill? Bill, are you there? We lost Bill.
Yeah, it looks like he fell off.
Okay, and Nikki?
Yes, I would like to continue to work with the city. And as Patty mentioned earlier, talk about repurposing and, what other community things, events, groups, restorative justice, just like really do an open brainstorming session on what other ways can we use that space. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. Bill, do you have a yes or no on this, working with the city?
I have a definite yes, and I think we're fortunate to be able to have the space to use. So we do have choices, and I think that's fortunate. So it's a definite yes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Well, excuse me. Well, Chris, I think you have your answer.
Thank you, everyone. And just so everybody knows, kind of next steps is, as you mentioned, Inspector Lullaberty is part of the Central Square board as a liaison from. We do have a meeting scheduled for August 20th. It's our next meeting. So that would be the next time our board, that's appointed by both parents, would have this discussion. So that would probably be the next logical step in this process. And based on what the board discusses, then I think it would be time for whatever leadership of the two organizations, the two parents, to get back together and talk about moving it down the road.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Joel.
Chris? Chris?
Go ahead, Nikki. Nikki, go ahead.
I believe that I gave you 2 options for that August 20th date. Number 1, reschedule it. And number 2, if you're not going to reschedule it, then I expect a birthday cake. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't forget that.
I know.
It's the day before my wife's birthday. If I forget your birthday, then I'm really in trouble.
You're in deep doo-doo.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris and Joel, for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next is the school resource officer update. Dr. Webb.
Yeah, it sounds like double trouble with birthdays there. Holy smokes. So we have the pleasure of having not only Commander Phil Offling on the line with us, but we also have Chief Mesrick on the line. And we have a great partnership with the South St. Paul Police Department. And the police department has built a really strong, positive relationship with the South St. Paul community. So each year we have a contract that we renew with our police liaison officers. And following the death of George Floyd, I had a conversation with several board members and just was directed by board members to say, hey, can you get with our police department? Can we have a conversation together? And can we continue to strengthen what's going on here in the district? And so we took the direction. We've had a couple of great meetings. And just heading into these meetings, we met with our administrative team and really looking at how could we, before the meetings, the collaborative meetings started, how could we strengthen what we're doing here in our district? And so we had our list. They came in with many of their ideas as well. And for the last month, we've had a couple of great collaborative meetings, one with the leaders of the South St. Paul Police Department, and then another one with Commander Offling and our police liaisons. And we're able to get into really hearing from them some of the South St. Paul Police perspective with our school resource officers, and we were able to share school district perspective. So, given the societal context of all the conversations that are happening across the United States, we want to be really intentional about our partnership here in South St. Paul schools. And like I said, we start from a position which is positive, which is a positive relationship with our police department, positive relationship with the community. And the police department has done a nice job in nurturing that. Phil can give you a little bit more of the history of the SROs here in South St. Paul. But the long and short of it is that through our partnership conversations, we are able to identify 2 or 3 things that we are going to be focused on as we're coming into a new school year. The top of the list is collaborative training. And we look forward to a shared collaborative training with the police department, with our SROs on areas of de-escalation training, crisis training, implicit bias, and anti-racism training, trauma and mental health training as well, and really continuing to grow in our child development information and sharing. We also want to expand our classroom partnerships and presentations, especially in our elementary school sites was one of those things that bubbled up to the top. And finally, we also want to, we know that teens across America struggle with chemical health. We want to make sure that we're continuing to provide support through presentations and all the resources that our police department has to support our students as they're making choices and trying to make good choices about chemical health and chemical use. So those are the few of the things that we have highlighted in your packet tonight. And I'm going to quiet down for a second, and I'm going to let Commander Offling just share a little bit of the history and a little bit of the background from our South St. Paul Police Department. So take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us. Like Dave said, we've been in the schools with SRO since 2002. But prior to that, we also operated a DARE program that began in the late 80s. And I had the good fortune of being a former DARE officer myself. I'm really proud of our SRO program, quite frankly. It's unusual in Dakota County and across the metro especially to have such a long relationship with the school with really no incidents that I can think of. You know, we've had great successes with all of our SROs. And again, with 18 years of experience, to say that I can't think of a significant incident, that's unusual. I mean, that's a lot of police contact over a long period of time. So again, very, very proud of that. We have 2 outstanding school resource officers right now, Melissa Cavalier and Randy Boyden. And some of the benefits that we've received, quite frankly, from the SRO program is the Explorer program. Officer Schwab, when he was the SRO for about 5 years, just a few years back, began the Explorer program. And, one of the things you hear about police in the school is, or police agencies in general, is how can the police department better represent the community? Well, through our SRO program and the Explorer program, we've hired 3 former explorers as police officers, and we've got upwards of a dozen former South St. Paul graduates on the department in total. So I don't know how you do it better than that. And again, I can't say enough of the positive relationship we've had with the district under both Dr. Webb's leadership and before that. So again, we've got data going back to the 80s with the DARE program, and in 2002 when we brought the first SRO in. I want to see that continue. I think it's a huge benefit. As a former DARE officer, I know the connections I made with the kids were very important, and quite frankly, the connections I made were with the kids that probably needed them the most. And I know that continues with our current SROs. Is the kids that need the attention, they tend to gravitate towards the cops, and we're able to provide some services and help them and their families sometimes, simply because they have such easy access to our 2 officers at the schools. And as far as the training, we have some officers trained in de-escalation and implicit bias. Some of the meetings we had prior to this was, as your staff trains, our staff trains with them, so the both sides are on the same page. We can provide some of that training as well from the police perspective, some of the stuff that we think is important. And the more we can get our cops into the classroom, the better. Again, I say that as a former DARE officer. I would love to see, especially Officer Cavalier, who focuses on the elementaries and the CLC, get into the school, into the classrooms more often, and at a younger age, present that positive image for our department, first of all, but also, again, I think that's where you make that connection with the kids that need it the most. And so I think it's a wonderful idea. As far as chemical health, anything we can do, there is much of what we do when people become adults is based on chemical health, and if we can make a difference there, we certainly want to. So again, I can't speak highly enough of the relationship we've had with the district, and again, very proud of the program.
Thank you. Chief Mesrick, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, there's not much more I can add to that. On top of what Commander Offling said about being representative of the community, we certainly have a community service officer program as well, and we have right now 3 of our community service officers are also either came out of that Police Explorer program or were South St. Paul graduates. So we're using both the Explorer program and the community service officer program to recruit our next officers, and those officers are coming from our community a lot of the time. So we're very proud of that, and look to do better in bringing more people with the diversity and second language skills into our police department through these programs. So I'm here for any questions if you need, but otherwise, thank you for the time.
Yeah, and we do want to open it up for board member questions. We wanted to make sure that we were slowing down, being intentional about our partnership, and make sure that we are improving on what we're doing as we're coming into the school year. We want to have an equity lens on all that we do. And so I just want to start by thanking our police partners for taking time to slow down, to learn, to study with us, so we could come out with an improved plan for the fall. So let's write down for board members' questions.
I see Patty's and Wendy's mics on. Who wants to go first? Mike, Wendy?
Okay, yeah, I would just like to thank our police department for all that you do for our students, our community. I am in total support of keeping an SRO in our buildings, and they represent our community. Like you said, they live in our community. There, a lot of them, several South St. Paul graduates. I know some of them personally. So I certainly want to keep the SROs in our buildings and appreciate your time and effort in taking the time to study, to do lessons and learning and cooperative things with our staff. So thank you very much. And I certainly appreciate everything that you do. And stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Patty?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Wendy. We are most grateful for your presence here in South St. Paul in so many ways. A question that I have, though, is are you noticing and reacting to, is there a significant change in demographics among our community? I mean, I've lived here for 25 years now, and it is changing. And is there one that you notice, or is it maintaining about the same mix of diversity in the community? Is there some intentional programming or what have you that you're addressing that? I mean, we're starting it through the schools right now, but I'm just wondering if truly there is a change in demographics in the community.
Well, my chief is a born and raised South St. Paul, so I'm going to defer on this one.
Yeah, well, certainly there's been a change in demographics since I was a child, and that's a good thing because there wasn't a lot of diversity. I think, there's certainly was several classmates of Hispanic descent when I was in school, but I think there was one African American student in my entire class in 1988. So certainly the demographics of the city has changed. It's changed in my 26 years in law enforcement, and although we do have some diversity on our police force, we don't have as much as we'd like, but truly try and hire police officers for character, and that's our true focus. If we can get diversity, that's certainly a bonus. And like I said, we started the Explore program, and we are using our community service officer program to try and get that more diverse candidates right now. I can tell you we've got 2 Hispanic descent community service officers right now, one who speaks a second language. We're excited about that. Like I said, as Commander Offling said before, color, national, origin, those things isn't necessarily represents the community. We are representing the community because we're from the community. I'm from this community. We've got 8 other officers that went to South St. Paul High School. We won't hold it against them, but we do have some Sibley and Simile graduates on there as well, so kind of close. But we're doing those things. As far as the programming, I'm not quite sure where you're trying to get to there, but if you want to explain that a little bit more, I can try and answer that.
If I could follow up, and I'll just echo what I shared with Dr. Webb. With our SRO folks, I just wonder if we can put a priority on inviting our officers being of color in that role, so that our students can see. And we're dealing with in our schools. We need teachers of color too, and so we almost have to go at it from an organic place where we've got to raise our own teachers. Perhaps we have to raise our own police officers too, and but acknowledge and recognize the diversity of our community. Back in the day, of course, we're proud South St. Paul residents, and we represent what it looked like back in the day, but does it represent it now? And I just wonder if we could put some real energy, and it's the equity conversation, in having our public servants reflect our community. And you've heard that before, so I know I'm not bringing anything new to the table for you, but I want to keep that front and forward for us as we talk about this. So thanks for your time.
Wendy or Patty, thank you so much for bringing up what you brought up. You took the words right out of my mouth. I come from a police officer family, as some of you know. In fact, I think, Chief, you went to school with my brother, who's in West St. Paul. We're a South St. Paul family. born and raised. And so love it. One of the CSOs is my little cousin, and don't worry, I'll practice Spanish with him. One of the explorers is his brother, another one of my cousins. So I think we are trying to help the community with who we are bringing up. But I just love, Patty, that you brought it up for me. And absolutely, you know, if it can happen, that would be great. I know that my 10-year-old son would love to see his heroes look like him sometimes too.
Well, I'll say that we're very intentional with the SRO program. Is we're being selfish. You know, we're looking to bring kids into the Explorer program that, you know, have some diversity and bring a different perspective. And we're targeting them. If we can get them into Explorers and give them a taste of law enforcement, the hope is then that they someday will decide to be a police officer, and hopefully we're their first choice. You know, it's tough to compete with St. Paul and Minneapolis in the bigger suburbs for these candidates. And if we can grow our own, and we have, and we will, absolutely. We're being selfish with this too.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of partnering with the other police departments? I know that, you know, West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Inver Grove Heights, and you're great partners anyways. Would that be something that you could partner with as well?
We do in many ways already. As far as the Explorer program, I'd like to keep it to our own. Just simply, again, because these are the kids we're looking to hopefully one day become police officers. And you know, our SROs are on the lookout for all kids, first of all, but especially children of color, that if they can persuade them to take a look at law enforcement, you know, hopefully, as the chief said, if the right character is there, we want them as cops.
Yeah, it's a family joke about how some cops, you know, when they're kids, they can choose either road, and it was definitely true for us. But so I think, you know, I think it's a great opportunity for kids to be able to try something new, and, you know, bringing it into the little kids area, especially everything that's been happening, wanting to take the fear out of police officers, and have them be seen as people and humans. So, and again, you know, it's easy for me to say because my boy's uncle is a police officer, so he can see that humanness first. But
and you're right. If we can get our SROs into the elementary school classrooms more often, I'm all for it. I mean, that's a great connection, and they learn then from a younger age to look at the uniform as a place of safety and a place of inclusiveness rather than what's portrayed in the media sometimes.
Or in reality sometimes.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is River Heights Naming Committee update. No, wait a minute. Let me back up. River Heights Naming Committee update. Dr. Webb.
Sure is. So just as we transition there, just a couple of connections. So it's great to hear about, you know, we've been focused on career pathways in healthcare and transportation and in business. Principal Ochaki is working to launch a new career pathway in future teachers, and really a teachers cohort of students that would like to be educators in the future. And it's great to hear about 8 South St. Paul grads now being police officers. We want to continue to build career pathways for our students wherever possible. So just some good news there. In regards to our naming committee, so we have just a year ago, our South St. Paul schools purchased the River Heights building located on Thompson Avenue in South St. Paul. For the past 6 months, we now have been working hard to coordinate and finish the renovation of the interior of that building. And Lisa, if you want to go ahead and share the PowerPoint, you got it going here. So We'll just follow along, and I'm going to get the right tab here. So this is a photo of the exterior. And this is the exterior of our River Heights building, and it won't be named the River Heights building for long. So our board said, we need a new name as we have a new building and we're renovating the building. And just as a reminder for our community as well, if we were to build this building, it would have been about a $6 million construction project. So we were able to purchase this building for $1.6 million. So a huge cost savings for our community. And it came with a tract of land of about 5 acres. So located right on the corner of Thompson and 19th. So for the past 6 months, we've been in construction and redesign. They're just starting on the reinstallation of the windows this week. And when we launch school in the fall, we will host in the upper floors, the upper 2 floors, our community learning center, which was located at Woog Arena. And then on the first floor, we have plans to move in our community education. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So for the past 6 weeks now, our facility committee has been meeting, and most recently we added a couple of our board members to our facilities naming process. We have a district policy that guided our work for the naming process for coming up with a new direction, a new name for River Heights. So we formed this committee and expanded facilities committee with board members as well. And we put out an invitation to our community. We received over 60 suggestions from our community, and our community and our committee began to review each of the recommendations one by one. If you want to go to the next slide, Lisa. We met with our team, began narrowing the list of all of our recommendations. We followed again in alignment with our process and our district policy. And as we narrowed our list, we wanted to make sure that we were in alignment with our current district facilities and naming. We wanted to be in alignment with our history, and we wanted it to highlight our South St. Paul name and its title. We also wanted to make sure that we, as I mentioned, aligned with all of our current district facilities. So our Kaposia Education Center and Lincoln Center, our middle school and high school facilities. And so we tonight are bringing forward with you a unanimous recommendation from our committee. And it took us a while to get to a unanimous recommendation. We, within our narrowing process, had a couple of finalists, but we're bringing to you a unanimous recommendation to name our new facility the South St. Paul Education Center. So this isn't up for approval tonight. We want you to hear it as board members, be able to soak it up, talk about it, reflect about it, just like we did as committee members. And in a couple weeks, come back then for an actual board vote to name this facility. So I'm going to quiet down, let any other committee members add, if you'd like to add other color commentary that I might have missed along the way. And then we'll hear from board members to get your feedback as well. Any committee members want to add to this?
I'll just say I'm not going to be on any more committees. This was difficult for me, trying to be a board member and trying to be on one committee. It was a hard thing to do.
So there's hard discussions in committees to come out with a plan, right? An agreement. So it doesn't matter if it's a plan for opening school or a plan for naming or a plan for police liaison officers. Committee work is hard work, so thank you, Jeff. Any other committee member feedback before we turn it over to board member feedback?
I'll say too, along with Jeff, that there's a lot of work that goes into what the executive committee does. I was just really glad to be a part of it and to see it firsthand. So I just want to give kudos to all of you who do make these decisions and bring us recommendations all of the time. So thank you so much.
Our two board members got a sense of the emotion that plays out at our leadership team committee meetings. So I'm a true believer in our committee members not holding back. So I don't try to shut committee members down when they have alternate or differing voices. Our IB program embraces multiple perspectives, diverse perspectives. And the mission statement for IB always said other people with their differences may also be right. So we had 61, I think, total submissions. And so we treated them as every one of these could be the right fit for our building. So to end up with a unanimous recommendation is now in front of the board. And in 2 weeks, we ask you to make the decision. So feedback from the board.
Yes, Dr. Webb, as a lifelong South St. Paul resident, proud member of the class of 75, a South St. Paul Packer for a long time, I submitted a couple suggestions too for the naming of the building, and I was really hoping to include the words Packers in somehow naming of the building. I know I suggested Packer Heights building and also the Packer Education Center to include the Packer name, because, you know, as we say all the time, once a Packer, always a Packer. And I thought Packer Community Center would entice the entire town of South St. Paul, because we talk about including our elementary, our preschool, our early education students, our secondary, the entire city. We're always up, once a Packer, always a Packer. So I really had been hoping maybe the word Packers would be included somewhere in the naming of this building. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
I'd like to jump in for a minute, Dave. I wish, you know, I was more aware of the committee and what they were doing, but, you know, my resume is pretty sound as a 75-year member of South St. Paul. I started school here 70 years ago. My wife taught here 40 years. My son has taught here 25 years. And I never got a chance to make an argument for a person who I think belongs on that building, and that's Dave Metzen. And I'm sure his name was brought up, but was it argued from a perspective of a South St. Paul person? And the answer is no. And, you know, I really am not in favor of the name unless I can have 5 or 10 minutes to make my argument for a man who's more than deserving. Thank you.
Thanks. I can tell you there was no shortage of arguments on the committee. So names were argued thoroughly by the committee, and I can assure you of that vetting.
Well, my point, I guess, Dave, is was there the proper input for all the things that he's done that people may or may not know about? And would that have swayed the committee? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go with the majority because it is a democracy, but I have to voice my disappointment at this time, okay? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. And that's why we're not voting tonight, because we want to give you some soak time on this before we make a final decision. Other board members?
Yeah, I'll support the committee process and the name that they came up with. I like the fact that South St. Paul is included in the name. And the more I looked at it, the more I like the word center, you know, rather than building or school or whatever alternative word could have been used there. That center just makes it seem like a place where things come together. So I like that word as well. So those are my quick thoughts.
Thank you. Others?
I like the name basically because it balances out. The north side is the South St. Paul Education Center, and the south side is the Kaposia Education Center. So I think there's some similarity that kind of pulls everything into one community, just by calling, like Chris said, by calling it an education center. I like those two words also.
Thank you.
And that was kind of the thought of the committee, that it's just such a broad name that anything can go in there. I mean, this isn't specifically for the CLC or the Community Education Center.
Especially because we don't know what it will be in the future, how we'll grow, how we'll change.
Anybody else? Okay, we will be voting on this at our next meeting, right, Dave?
Next meeting, yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to American Indian Annual Compliance Documentation. I saw Connie was here earlier, but I think she left.
Yeah, so this is our standard yearly submission. So it's making sure that we're supporting all of the dotting the I's, crossing the T's for our paperwork for the Minnesota Department of Education.
Okay, thank you. IOWA designation. Dr. Webb, you want to take this one?
Yes, so for all of our state systems, this designates Lisa Brandecker and I to have the ability to grant access for employees into like our state finance system access and the like. So it's board designation for giving permissions to our staff.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Next is human resources staffing. Kathy Miller.
Jeff, a real quick question.
Oh, sure, sure, Patty.
I'm a little confused about the wording because it says on here that Dave Webb to act as the identified official with the Iowa and Lisa Brandecker to act as the Iowa. To add and remove names only for, so what is her role? Is she the administrator? What is her title?
Yeah, so if you look at the Iowa designation, so the superintendent would be that figurehead, but when people really need permissions and getting into the system itself, your assistant is usually granting that permission. And so that's what the Iowa master designation is. And so Lisa's really the hands-on day-to-day support for that.
Well, I just think there's a word missing. And Lisa Brandecker act as the Iowa to add and remove names only for South St. Paul. The document is missing a word in there. Is she
and Patty, I'll tell you, they give us the exact language that needs to be in there. So that was given directly from MDE and exactly what we need to approve. And there's a document for Jeff to sign later for us to send to MDE saying that that's exactly what we approved.
Okay, it just sounds like you are Iowa.
I know, I agree. I totally agree with you.
Congratulations.
Okay. You okay, Patty?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, Kathy, you got staffing update. If you're still here, Kathy. There you are.
I am here. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. Quick report on staffing. So in your board packet, we have some appointments in the certified area. We have some changes of assignment in the ECFE area and summer school curriculum writing, and so a couple of resignations listed. And actually, Nikki, you referenced this early, the Employee Pandemic Advisory Committee, some folks appointed to that under the certified. So are there any questions about any of the certified appointments? Okay, I'll move on then to the classified or non-certified. So there again, we have a couple of appointments under classified, the Employee Pandemic Advisory Committee, some appointments there, and then some resignations and some leaves under non-certified. Any questions about any of the classified or non-certified? Okay, that is in your consent agenda for approval.
Thank you, Kathy. Next is health insurance premium rates. Are you going to take that, or Aaron and you tag team on it?
Aaron is actually going to take that this evening.
Awesome. Hi, Aaron.
Hi there. Good evening to you all. So we are asking for your approval of health insurance rates for 2021. As a little bit of a reminder, we started our self-insurance program back on January 1, 2018. And as we started the first few years, the goal was to build a reserve. So our reserve goal is to have approximately 6 to 9 months worth of expenses in that reserve. And so during the first few years, we did raise premiums by 8%, again, with the goal of establishing that reserve. And so as we analyze the current information, as of the end of May of 2020, we had about 8 months worth of expenses in reserve. So we are well within that 6 to 9 months reserve target. So our recommendation tonight is to propose a 0% change in our health insurance premiums for 2021. So we think in the short term, that will be an important component of our budget process as we move forward. However, as we mentioned in the board report, we don't think a 0% change is sustainable every year. And so just to kind of set those expectations that you know, don't expect us to come back and say 0% again the following year. So, but again, we feel like we have sufficient reserves at this point in time. A couple other things. So the proposed health insurance rates are in the board packet. Again, those are no change from 2020. And this information also was sent out to the district's insurance committee as well. So they received the same information, and we received positive feedback based on sending that information out. I will mention one more thing that's not in your board packet, something that we've been monitoring closely and working with Gallagher, our insurance broker, is the impact of COVID and what that means for our self-insurance plan. And so generally speaking, in the short term, what we experienced is less insurance costs, right? There was kind of the quarantine in place. Folks weren't going to the doctor on a more regular basis that they normally would. So we did see a decrease there. However, once we either begin or continue moving out of this, we do expect to see, I guess, a spike, so to speak, in insurance costs. However, in monitoring this, we don't feel like this will necessarily have a significant long-term impact at this point in time, based on the information that we know. So just wanted to mention a little something, because we are in control of our own health insurance plan now. So we are monitoring that closely, and at this time don't expect a significant impact right now. So with that, Kathy, if you have anything to add, or we can answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Aaron? Okay, thank you, Aaron and Kathy. Okay, now I'll go into the business part. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent items, which include financial claims, Bills payable, staffing appointments, resignations, transfers, retirements, abolishments, and leaves. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Inspector Lalaberty,
Yes.
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
Inspector Felton,
Yes.
Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes.
Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And that is approved. We have 4 policies under review: school closing, student promotion, retention and program design, homeschooling, and graduation requirements. The specifics are on the website. Next, we will need approval for the South St. Paul School Board to approve the 2021 Independent Employment Agreement. Do I have a motion to approve?
Chair McClellan.
Yes.
We need a motion for the policies are up for approval.
Oh, they are up for approval.
They are up for approval, yes.
Okay, I needed a motion for approve the policies.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes.
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Inspector Lalaberty,
Yes.
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
Inspector Felton,
Yes.
Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
and Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And they are approved. Okay, approval for the South St. Paul School Board to approve the 2020-2021 Independent Employee Agreement. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes.
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Inspector Lalaberty,
Yes.
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
Inspector Felton,
Yes.
and Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And that is approved. Next is the approval for the South St. Paul School Board to approve the 2021 health insurance premium rates. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Felton,
Yes.
Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes.
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Inspector Lalaberty,
Yes.
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
and Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And that is approved. Next is the approval of the Minnesota Department of Education, MDE, requires that school districts annually designate an identified official with authority to comply with the MNIT Enterprise Identify and Access Management Standard, which states that all user access rights of Minnesota state systems must be reviewed and certified at least annually. The identified official with authority will assign job duties and authorize external users access to MDE secure systems for their local education agency. The board recommends to authorize Dave Webb to act as the identified official with authority and Lisa Brandecker to act as the Iowa to add and remove names for the South St. Paul School District's number 6-103. They have a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
Inspector Felton,
Yes.
Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes.
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Inspector Lalaberty,
Yes.
Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And that is approved. Next is the approval for the South St. Paul School Board to approve the acceptance of gifts resolution. So will you read the resolution?
Be it resolved that the School Board of South St. Paul Public Schools, Special School District Number 6, accept the following donations as indicated in the detailed background listed below. Donation amount of $200 designated to the Random Acts of Kindness Fund. The donation is from Elizabeth Sangalia and the purpose for as needed.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Jeff, I would just add just a thank you. There was a really nice thank you note from Elizabeth as a shout out to the district and what we're doing. And she said, you know, I know the $200 donation won't cover, you know, district expenses, but it might help make a small difference and kind of pay it forward to South St. Paul kids in the future. So we put it into the Random Acts of Kindness Fund.
Thank you, Dave. Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Laliberty,
Yes.
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
Inspector Felton, Inspector
Yes.
Felton. Thank you. Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes, and thank you, Elizabeth.
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
And that is approved. Next is the board member reports and any committees you've attended. And we've also moved Where Have You Seen a Passion down to here because it's been hard to get the things to even, I mean, you guys know. So if you've seen a passion, please include that with that too, would you? First up is Bill.
I've got nothing tonight, Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Chris?
I do have one thing where I found a passion, something that caught my eye. There's a 10-year-old at Lincoln Center who is a cancer survivor. Her name is Kaylee, and actually through all of this, I did not even get her last name, but I don't know that that's even all that important. But she decided to celebrate her surviving cancer by raising money for the American Childhood Cancer Organization. So she is selling T-shirts. I hope I'm holding this up right for the camera. And the proceeds, the profits from the sale of the T-shirts goes to the American Childhood Cancer Organization. Her goal was 50 T-shirts. When I caught wind of this, she was somewhere around 40. But I saw today that she is at 70 with 9 days to go. So congratulations to her on a successful campaign to do that. And if this is something you're interested in, you can go out to bonfire, bonfire.com and put in the search bar, just put in the hashtag Kaylee Strong, KAELEESTRONG. That even shows up on the shirt too, her little hashtag here, which I thought was pretty cool. So anyway, that was the passion that caught my eye, that she was willing to go to all that effort just to celebrate her success. So I wanted to pass that on.
Thank you, Chris. Nikki?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Patty?
Nothing tonight.
Linda?
I've been waiting. I've got two things. So, thank you to the summer lunch folks. They've been working so hard, and those days that it was nasty, hot, and gross. And then the school district added transportation with the vans to some sites. It's just been amazing. It has been so much fun. Even when Bubba had a cardboard camp last week and he said, "Don't forget my lunch." And I was like, okay. And I did forget it one day, and he misses all the milk. So when a 10-year-old boy likes calcium, what does that mean? That he's growing? Gross. I don't need him to grow anymore. So thank you to summer lunch folks. It's been just so great. The second thing is that, and I've talked to Jeff about it and Superintendent Webb and teachers, but the Summer Learning Academy, I signed Israel up for, and it is outstanding. So for those of you who may not know, it is 4 hours, 8:30 to 12:30. Each hour is hosted by a different teacher. Each hour is a different topic: math, science, connections, which right now the focus is on states. So he's doing a report on New York. Math, science, connections, and language arts. And in the language arts, it's about a castle. It's castle. They're reading a book about castles. It is so cool. So they are really on, because he's, you know, 4th grader going into 5th grade. They're on for at the very least 45 minutes, mostly on average between 50 and 55 minutes. And it is constant teacher time. There are about 10 kids in each of those classes, and they are on camera. And this is like what they decided as a class, that to stay connected, they had to be on camera. And so they're on camera the whole time, 4 hours, and conversing, talking. They utilize different tools still. So sometimes there'll be a link of a video and all the kids will watch it together, and then she'll stop it and ask questions. Or the teacher will say, you know, here's the link, you go watch it, and then come back in 10 minutes and we'll get together and review. Sometimes they get done a little bit early and they have to finish up some work. Like it feels very classroom-like. He's not just sitting, you know, sometimes it's like, you've got 10 minutes before your next class. I want you to touch a wall in every room. And then I'll hear, you know, the thunder, elephant thunder of him running and hitting all the walls. He's loved it. He didn't even want to go to hockey. This is the first time in 4.5 years that he's missed any hockey. And he didn't want to go to hockey, extra hockey, because he loved Summer Learning Academy so much. So I wanted to show you, not only were they talking about the castles, they're reading about castles, they're discussing castles, they're watching videos on castles all over the world, but they had to make castles. So all kids did something different. And we were collecting cardboard for the cardboard camp. And so he decided to make the castle out of cardboard. And of course, because we get lunch twice a week, that we had a gazillion cardboard boxes from the lunches. So I'm just showing you part of it, because he made a moat, and then there's a big gate with a drawbridge. I'm not going to show you all that. Okay, let's see if you can see it. Can you see? Yeah. So he had 3 cousins give him ideas and help work on it. I was working on it on Sunday. We were putting it together. He was painting outside because he made a moat. Anyways, it has been a lot of fun. So those are my 2 things.
Wow. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
Wendy, top that.
You can probably.
Well, nothing too drastic, but I did have an opportunity to attend a meeting with Intermediate District 917, which was held a couple weeks ago. It is an annual special education event. Obviously, the majority of the people, it was virtual. They did allow to have a few in-person attendance. It was held up at the Dakota Lodge at Thompson Park in West St. Paul. There were only 6 of us people there, special ed directors. I believe I was probably the only board member that attended. Was with Kelly Chetrick that day. And we were discussing all of the things, the difficulties with COVID-19 and special education services. As you can imagine how hard it is to provide virtual learning to special ed students, especially visually impaired or hearing impaired students. So it was a very informative educational afternoon. And the other thing I want to remind the community, which is really exciting because I absolutely love musical theater. This week, Eric Holson, our theater director, is proud to present, and I'm just going to read it right off of the website here, they are proud to present the summer musical. It's called The Big 1-0, which is an online edition. To describe the thing, it's Charlie is a shy child whose friends are all imaginary monsters. But Charlie wants a real birthday party with some new real friends. An adorable and fun musical based on well-loved children's book. And the tickets are available for purchase online. This is a virtual entertainment show. It will be shown on Zoom at 2 in the afternoon or 7 p.m. on July 30th, 31st, and August 1st. So tickets can be purchased at showticketsforyou.com, or you can contact Eric Holson and his email address, eholson@sspps.org. You can order your tickets through either of those areas, through Eric or through Show Tickets. For more information, go on to the district website, and there'll be plenty of, and you connect right to your link with the Show Tickets for You. So for family entertainment, you can stay at home, in the comfort of your home, and see a theater production with our South St. Paul students. It should be a lot of fun, 6 performances. So we encourage people to go online, purchase your tickets to watch it this week. Thank you.
I've got my tickets.
Jeff, can I do one announcement?
Absolutely, Patty.
Okay, sorry about that. Tomorrow is a big day in that you may file to run for school board, for South St. Paul School Board. Starts tomorrow at City Hall, and you have until August 11th to go and sign up. I think it costs $2 to register as a candidate.
$2.
And I know that there's 3 of us that came on at the same time that will all be up for re-election. I am not going to run again. So there will definitely be a chair open. And I just want to encourage you folks out there in South St. Paul land to please do seriously consider running for school board. It has enriched my life in ways that I could have never, ever expected. And if I could run again, I probably would, but things are changing. My future is changing, so I will not be. So I just want to encourage everybody out there to please be sure and consider signing up to run for school board. Opens tomorrow, July 28th at City Hall.
Thank you, Patty.
Yep.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Lisa, will you take the roll?
Inspector Walker,
Yes.
Inspector Lalaberty,
Yes.
Inspector Arend,
Yes.
Inspector Felton,
Yes.
Inspector Diaz,
Yes.
Inspector Bjorklund,
Yes.
Chair McClellan.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas. It's 7:05.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.